I'm pregnant and it's his. We're keeping it, she said. So I quietly filed for divorce. Now, she's a single mum and he won't even pay child support. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. I cried when Sarah handed me the stick. It wasn't a sob, just a slow, silent track of tears I didn't even feel until she pointed it out with a soft, breathless laugh. You're crying, she whispered, her own eyes glistening. After 3 years of negative tests, fertility clinics that smelled of antiseptic and despair, and silent car rides home, where the weight of our failure was a physical presence in the backseat, we had finally done it. 2 pink lines, a perfect digital pregnant. The world, which had felt like it was closing in on us for so long, suddenly exploded with color and possibility. Are you sure? I heard myself say, my voice thick. She laughed, a real joyful sound I hadn't heard in months. 5 tests? Sure. I'm pregnant, Mark. We're pregnant. I pulled her into a hug, burying my face in her hair, smelling the familiar scent of her coconut shampoo. This was it, the finish line. Every shot I'd administered, every tear I'd wiped away, every dollar we'd poured into the bottomless pit of hope, it was all worth it for this single perfect moment in our sun-drenched kitchen. We have to call our parents, I said, pulling back my mind already racing. We should start looking at nursery colors. Do you think it's a boy or a girl? Oh my God, we're going to be parents. I was babbling and she was smiling, but there was a tightness around her eyes I chose to ignore. The last few months had been hard. The stress of the last failed round of IVF had broken something between us. We'd started seeing Dr. Evans, a couples counselor, to navigate the grief, as Sarah had put it. And to be fair, it had seemed to help her at least. Her sessions with him had started running long. She'd come home calmer, more centered, sometimes a little distant, but I chopped that up to her processing things. She said he was a miracle worker. I was just grateful she was coping. I'd bear any amount of quiet distance if it meant she was finding some peace. Now, with this miracle in our hands, I thought the distance would vanish forever. I was already picturing a future I'd almost given up on. Tiny socks, sleepless nights, teaching a little person how to ride a bike. Our little person. Let's not tell anyone yet, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Not until we're further along, you know, just to be safe. Of course, I agreed instantly, my joy too immense to be contained by logic. Whatever you want, this is everything, Sarah. I kissed her forehead, my heart feeling like it might burst out of my chest. I was the luckiest man alive. The long dark winter was over. I had no idea I was standing in the eye of the hurricane. I was humming 2 days later, making her a cup of ginger tea the internet swore would help with morning sickness. The world still had that golden hour glow. I'd secretly bought a onesie online, a tiny grey thing with "Made with Love" and a little bit of science printed on the front. It was hidden in my gym bag. Sarah, "Tay's almost ready," I called out. She walked into the kitchen, but she didn't come to me. She stood by the island, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was still in her robe. "You need to sit down, Mark," she said. Her voice was flat. A statement. The kettle began its shrill whistle. I turned off the stove, the happy hum in my chest fading. "What's wrong? Are you feeling sick? Do you need to lie down?" "Just sit down." The tone, it was the one she used when our dog had gotten into the trash. Disappointed. Cold. I pulled out a chair from the kitchen table and sat my knees suddenly weak. "Okay, I'm sitting. What is it?" She stayed standing, a prosecutor before the jury. She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." A wave of relief washed over me. "I know, honey. That's the amazing news. Weird, but it's not yours." The words didn't compute. They were sounds, nonsense syllables that hung in the air between us. The world didn't shatter. It just evaporated. The sound of the kettle cooling down was a million miles away. I could only stare at her. "What did you say?" Her jaw was set. "It's not yours. The baby. It's David's." David? The name was a key turning in a lock I didn't know existed. David. Dr. Evans. Our therapist. The air left my lungs in a silent whoosh. I couldn't get it back. I was drowning on dry land. "David, I managed to choke out. He understands me," she said. And now the words came in a rush. Rehearsed and venomous. "He knows what I've been through in a way you never could. You were always so clinical about it, tracking cycles, giving shots, reading the statistics. He sees me. He made me feel alive again when I was just a walking, talking failure to you." To me, the word was a gasp. "I was there for you. Every step. I never blamed you. Not once." "You didn't have to." She snapped her eyes, flashing with an anger I didn't understand. "Your silent support was its own kind of blame." "David, he gave me passion. He made me feel desired, not like a broken incubator you were constantly trying to fix." I looked at this woman, my wife, the person I had built my entire adult life around. Her face was a mask of self-righteous conviction. There was no shame, no apology, just a brutal surgical presentation of the facts as she had twisted them. And then she delivered the final killing blow. "We've decided we're keeping it," she said, her voice dropping to a cold, definitive calm. "He's leaving his practice. We're going to be a family." The finality of it, the we, her, and him a unit. Planning a future while I was still living in what I thought was our present. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. What was there to say, to argue, to plead? The foundation of my life wasn't just cracked. It had been vaporized. The image of the hidden onesie in my gym bag flashed in my mind. A pathetic, cruel joke. I looked at her for one last long second, memorizing the stranger in my wife's skin. Then I pushed back from the table. The chair legs screeched against the tile, the only sound of protest in the room. I didn't look at her again. I turned, walked out of the kitchen, past the still steaming cup of tea, and out the front door. I got into my car, drove 2 blocks and pulled over. My entire body shaking so violently I had to grip the steering wheel to keep from flying apart. I don't know how long I sat in that car, parked haphazardly on a residential street 2 blocks from the home I just fled. The shaking eventually subsided, leaving behind a hollow, ringing silence. It wasn't peace. It was the void after an explosion. The man who had cried over a pregnancy test, who had dreamed of nursery colours, was gone. Whatever was left in his place felt cold, hard, and terrifyingly clear. I started the car and drove to a generic mid-tier hotel near the airport. I paid in cash for one night. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone buzzing in my pocket like a trapped insect. It was her. Sarah, where did you go? Sarah, we can't just not talk about this. Sarah, you walking out like that is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't handle real emotion. I read the messages. Each one was a small toxic dart, but they bounced off the new numb shell around me. She was trying to rewrite the narrative already to make my stunned catastrophic grief into an emotional failure on my part. I didn't block her. Blocking was an emotion. Blocking was a reaction. I simply turned the notifications to silent, placed the phone on the nightstand, and stared at the patterned hotel room carpet until the sun rose. At 8:01 a.m. I was on my laptop searching for the most ruthless, efficient divorce lawyer in the state, not the one who had drawn up our amicable prenup years ago. I found her, Elena Rostova. Her firm's tagline was strategic dissolutions. Her photo showed a woman with calm, assessing eyes that promised no mercy. By 10:15 a.m., I was in a sterile, modern office sitting across from her. Tell me everything she said, her voice, even a digital recorder on the desk between us. I did. I recited the events in the same flat tone I'd used to check into the hotel, the infertility, the therapy, Dr. David Evans, the pregnancy test, the conversation in the kitchen. I was a witness giving a deposition on the death of my own life. When I finished, Rostova didn't offer condolences. She smiled a thin, sharp thing. Ethical violation, alienation of affection, and a pre-existing prenup that strongly favors you, the non-breaching party. This will be clean. He'll be stripped of his license. She will get nothing she didn't bring into the marriage. We'll file immediately. The language was beautiful in its coldness. Non-breaching party. Strategic dissolution. It was the lexicon of survival. I signed the papers she put in front of me. I gave her the keys to my house so her process server could do his job. I transferred a retainer from an account that was, according to the prenup, solely mine. From the lawyer's office, I went to the bank. I closed the joint savings account we'd started for the baby fund. I removed her as an authorized user from my credit cards. Each task was a check mark on a list. I was the CEO of my own collapse, and I was liquidating a failed partnership with brutal efficiency. It was the only way to survive without drowning in the molten, screaming anger that I knew was bubbling somewhere far beneath the ice. I went back to the hotel, upgraded my stay to a week, and bought new clothes from a department store. I didn't go back for my things. They were relics from a dead civilization. Let the archaeologists sort them out. My phone buzzed occasionally. The tone of her messages began to shift. Sarah, I was served at David's office. What is wrong with you? Sarah, you're actually doing this. You're just going to throw away 8 years? Sarah, Mark, answer me. This is cruel. I read them all. I felt nothing. Or rather, I felt the satisfaction of a complex algorithm finally resolving. This was the consequence of her actions. She had expected, begging, negotiating a messy emotional battle where she could hold the moral high ground of her new love. She had not expected silence. She had not expected a wall of legal paperwork. The silence I cultivated was no longer empty. It was becoming my greatest strength. I never broke my silence with Sarah, but the world, it seemed, was happy to gossip on my behalf. My silence created a vacuum, and information rushed in to fill it. The first update came from my friend Ben, who had been our mutual friend first. His text was a masterpiece of awkward concern. Ben, hey man, heard about you and Sarah. That's rough. Also heard some wild stuff about that therapist guy who's in deep. I didn't need to ask. Rostova's office forwarded me a TER. The state licensing board had moved with startling speed after receiving their complaint corroborated by the divorce filing, which named him as the correspondent. Dr. David Evans had his license suspended pending a full hearing. which was a polite way of saying his career was over. His practice was shuttered. The miracle worker was exposed as a predatory, unethical hack. The next update was from Sarah's own sister, Chloe, who had always been the decent one in the family. Her message was more empathetic. Chloe, Mark, I'm so sorry for what she did. It's monstrous. I just wanted you to know that. Mom and dad are supporting her, but I think it's wrong. I wrote back a simple thank you, Chloe. I appreciate that. It was my first human response in weeks, and it was to someone who is now effectively a stranger. The act felt strangely normal. A few weeks later, Chloe messaged again, unprompted. Clue, it's all falling apart. David lost everything. He's not handling it well. He blames Sarah for seducing him and ruining his life. He packed a bag and left. No one knows where he is. She's 7 months pregnant and he hasn't even filed for the baby's child support. He's just gone. I read that message in my new, smaller, sleeker apartment. The silence there was my own. I felt a flicker then, not of sympathy, but of cold, hard validation. This was the man she had chosen over me. This was the passion and understanding she had traded our life for. It had the structural integrity of a house of cards in a hurricane. The final piece of the karma puzzle came not as a message, but as a screenshot. Ben, who had a morbid fascination with the train wreck, sent me a cropped image from Sarah's social media. It was a quote graphic posted to her public profile against a background of a weeping willow tree. It read, when you realize your rock was a diamond and you traded it for a piece of glass that cuts you every time you try to hold it. I stared at the image. The self-pity was breathtaking. There was no accountability. No, I am sorry. I destroyed my marriage and betrayed the man who loved me. It was all poetic victimhood. She was the tragic figure who had been tricked by shiny glass. I didn't respond to Ben. I didn't save the screenshot. I simply closed the message. The diamond she referenced was gone. In its place was forged something else entirely, something harder, sharper, and infinitely more valuable. And it no longer had any place for her. The karma was complete, but the consequences were just beginning for her. My silence became a fortress, and her attempts to scale its walls grew increasingly frantic. I watched them come in, not with anger, but with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a lab experiment. Phase 1, the mistake text. The first direct attempt came on a Tuesday evening. I was reviewing a contract for my new apartment, the one with a view of the city skyline that was entirely mine. My phone lit up with her name for the first time in months. Sarah Mark, I made a terrible mistake. He's gone? He left me. I'm so alone and I'm so scared. Can we please talk just for a few minutes? I don't expect anything. I need to hear your voice. I read the message twice. The phrasing was perfect in its self-absorption. I made a mistake. I'm scared. There was no, I'm sorry for what I did to you. No, I understand if you never want to speak to me again. It was a request for emotional support. As if I was still her husband, as if she had just burned dinner, not our entire life. I felt a distant clinical pity for her, the kind one might feel for a spider eating its own leg. I didn't reply. I didn't block her. I simply swiped the notification away and returned to my contract. The message was now a piece of data in my archive, irrelevant to my future. Phase 2, the voicemail play. Weeks passed. The divorce proceedings were in their final mundane stages, handled entirely by Rostova. Then one morning, while I was on the treadmill at the gym, my phone vibrated with a voicemail notification from her. I waited until I was in the cooldown stretch to listen. I put it on speaker, the sound of her voice competing with the clatter of weights around me. Her voice was thick, with tears, ragged with exhaustion that felt bottomless. It's me again. I'm 8 months pregnant now. I'm so alone. The baby shower. It was so pathetic. Our friends, your mum, no one came. Just my mum and a couple of aunts. They just looked at me with pity. She took a shuddering breath. I know what I did was horrible. I do. But this is our child's half-sibling. Doesn't that mean anything? Don't you feel anything? Please? I need you. I have no one else. I stopped stretching. I listened to the silence after her message ended. I searched within myself for any remnant of the man who would have moved heaven and earth for that cry for help. I found nothing. No anger, no sadness, no flicker of obligation. Her pain was a fact. Like the weather report, inconvenient for her, but unrelated to me. I deleted the voicemail, finished my cooldown, and left the gym. Her pleas were now just background noise, easily tuned out. Phase 3, the family ambush. The most predictable attempt came from her mother, Linda. She had always been a toxic, meddling presence, and her call to my new private number, which she must have gotten from Sarah, was a masterpiece of manipulation. Mark, she began her voice syrupy with false concern. It's Linda. We need to talk. I'm listening. I said, my tone neutral. I was driving to a meeting, the car's Bluetooth making the conversation feel even more detached. Sarah is a wreck. She's about to have a baby, for God's sake. She's the mother of your child in spirit. You took vows in sickness and in health. Well, she's sick with regret. She's vulnerable. You can't just abandon her now. A real man would step up and help her through this. I let her finish. The entitlement was breathtaking. I took a calm breath, mirroring the tone my lawyer used with opposing counsel. Linda, I said, my voice firm and flat. My obligations to Sarah were dissolved by the court. My only remaining obligation is to ensure the terms of our divorce are upheld. Please do not contact me again regarding this matter. There was a sputtering on the other end. How can you be so... I ended the call. The silence in the car was absolute. There was no satisfaction in it. No victory. There was only peace. The last bridge was burned. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. She forced the final act. An email arrived from an address I didn't recognize, but the phrasing was unmistakably hers. I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it, but I have some things of yours. Photos. Your grandfather's watch. I can't just throw them away. Can we please meet just once so I can give them to you? One coffee. The place on Elm Street. Tomorrow, 1000 a.m. I'll be there. It was a transparent ploy. The watch was a cheap, sentimental thing, and the photos were digital, but I knew she wouldn't stop. This was the final loose thread. I decided to cut it myself. I arrived at the coffee shop at 10:05 a.m., coming directly from a morning meeting. I was in a tailored suit, a tangible representation of the new life I was building. She was already there in a booth by the window. The baby stroller beside her was like a shield. She looked tired, her face puffy, her eyes darting nervously around the room. When she saw me, a flicker of hope lit her features, quickly masked by a performative sadness. I slid into the booth opposite her. Sarah Mark. She breathed, her voice trembling. Thank you for coming. You look really good. I have a meeting nearby in 20 minutes, I said, my voice polite and utterly detached. What did you need to discuss? She flinched at the tone. This wasn't the broken man she'd left in the kitchen. This was a stranger. She gestured to the stroller. I wanted you to see him. Look at him, Mark. He has my eyes, but look at the shape of his face. Doesn't this change anything? I glanced at the sleeping infant. He was innocent. He was also nothing to me. No, I said simply. Tears welled in her eyes. Real, this time. We had a life, Mark. A future. We could go back to therapy. A real therapist this time. We could work through this. For us. The absurdity of the statement was almost beautiful. I looked at her. This woman who had detonated our marriage with such casual cruelty, now begging to return to the rubble. Sarah, I said, my voice low and final, that future belonged to different people. The man you married died in that kitchen. The man I am now is happier, healthier, and building a life that doesn't include you. I wish you and your son the best, but our paths diverged permanently. This is the last time we will speak. The mask of the victim shattered. Her face hardened. The anger I knew was there, finally surfacing. You're just going to walk away just like that. You're that cold. After everything we had, I stood up, placing a $20 bill on the table for my untouched coffee. I looked down at her, not with hatred, but with a profound, unshakable certainty. No, I said, meeting her furious gaze. I'm that done. Goodbye, Sarah. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop. She didn't call after me. The bell on the door chimed behind me, a clean, sharp sound. I walked to my car, the mid-morning sun warm on my face. I didn't look back. There was nothing for me there. I got in, started the engine, and pulled into the traffic, heading toward my meeting, my career, my new apartment, my life. The silence in my car was no longer empty. It was peaceful. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.